Welcome, everyone. My name is Alan Fox, and I'm here with the author of the 2013 memoir, Jack Be Nimble, The Accidental Education of an Unintentional Director, and his name is Jack O'Brien.
Buy the book now. Buy it.
That's what I was going to say, man.
know-
That's a plug. It's a plug for the book. They can actually go to our website, www.noswitchact.com, click on merch table, and buy both your books.
Can we talk about that for just a minute? Because the book got really good. Well, the second book didn't get reviewed at all.
Right. Not yet.
Not at all. And it had juicier stuff in it than the first one, I think. But the first one got a really nice message, notice in the Times, the New York Times, and it didn't sell.
Well, it's hard, man. The book business is not what it used to be, maybe.
It is too.
Okay. Anyways,
I mean, it does for other people. Other people are selling books.
Well, I don't know, man. You can't compare yourself to Stephen King.
Listen, yes, I can, but
honestly, I think you're a better writer than Stephen King. I read it. I don't know if you remember this. The first time I met you,
I do.
You told me to read your book, and I wondered. So I had a couple questions when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about to kick off the episode. The one thing I wanted to ask you was, when did you decide to write that? What caused you to write it?
There was a spur or a burr under my seat about it because there had been either an editorial or an article in the New York Times that said that New York had not ever had a repertory company on Broadway or something like that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't exactly right, but the inference was Ellis Rabb and Rosemary Harris and APA Phoenix and the little company that birthed me has gone. And at the time, at the time in 1968, 69, 70, when it fell apart, and I was just starting out. Yeah, that was my day. 69 was my debut year.
Yeah,
that was the last official year of APA. And it had been going for 10 years. But by that time, Ellis Rabb had delivered a company playing repertory that had a place in the Lyceum Theater in New York City, the James Doolittle Theater in Los Angeles, the Lydia Mendelson Theater at Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the University of Michigan, and the Toronto, more beautiful theater up there. Anyway, we had a full year of engagements across the country and frankly into Canada.
Yeah.
And no, it wasn't like it wasn't the most important thing that ever happened, but somebody like Steve Sondheim said to me when he saw Ellis's production of Pantaglass, it kind of changed his life. He'd never seen anything like it in his life.
Yeah.
Helen Hayes, the old sort of first lady of the American theater, was in that company. Eva Le Gallienne, who had the Civic Theater in the 30s, she was in that company. I mean, we had this. It was an astonishing thing. Yeah. And suddenly the Times is blowing it up saying there never was anything like that.
Yeah. You felt sort of a responsibility to make sure wait a second, there was something like that.
I know that Rosemary Harris was really angry, and I think she wrote a letter to the Times.
Right.
But I thought to myself, how does this happen that these people who are cultural influences and are riding the rails, are deeply committed to something, just go? And because theater is really all about making memory, not much else, because it doesn't exist after it goes. Yeah. It either stays in there or it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it sort of broke my heart that this remarkable group of people, and it wasn't just them. I mean, it was Nancy Marchand and Keene Curtis and Will Geer and, extraordinary people were in and out of that company. Brian Bedford was in it for a while. These are names that don't mean anything to you. I know.
No, but it's no,
I
no, but
see the
no, no, no,
expression
no, no, no.
on
That's
your
not
face.
why. That's not why I'm making that face. I'm making that face because I told you, man. When we come to these episodes every day, right? I always have I forgot how you phrased it earlier. A crawl in my shoe or under my seat or whatever.
A burr under your saddle.
A burr. Yeah, yeah. I was way off. But man, I kept thinking about. I wanted to know why you wrote that book because I think maybe I told you, maybe I didn't. I'm sure I've told you before. I have a manuscript for a novel that I wrote probably 10 years ago.
No.
Have we never talked about this?
No.
Yeah, I wrote a fiction book that was sort of inspired by my time in the modeling industry. And it's funny, man, every time I think about it, every time, because what happened was I wrote it. We didn't really go to many publishers. It went to like one, or we were trying to find an agent, not publishers. So we went to like an agent or something, and it was right around the time Safe Space was bought. So when Safe Space was bought, I basically said, okay, let's cool it on the book. And what I did was I set it up. It was called Mannequin Life. What I did was I set it up as a TV show at ABC Signature. And I was going to develop it there and then self-publish the book. Like I maintained the rights, and I was going to sell the book myself if a TV show was made about it. Well, long story, not to kill the elephant in the room, but the TV show wasn't made. I got the rights to the book back. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot about it. But the reason I bring that up is because I wrote it in a lot of ways. Every time I think about it, it's a way of validating that experience that was so formidable in my life. Do you know what I mean? And it's so in some ways, when I hear you talk about APA, it's like, man, like how can you say this didn't exist? This is what made me. These people, these experiences, this sort of cocoon is what birthed me. I don't know. It's just kind of neat that you would, because I was wondering.
The other thing that you're sort of igniting here is these things that we do because we're fervent about them.
Mm.
You write this novel. I mean, several years ago, Ethan Hawke and Jonathan Mark Sherman and I were trying to adapt The Cherry Orchard.
Yeah, I remember.
For film. I think you read it.
You mentioned it. Yeah, yeah.
And we all decided to write a scene to see what would happen, and I won. Mine was better than theirs, and
Yeah.
they said right away, "You write it. Go ahead." I'd never
Yeah.
written a screenplay.
Right.
I wrote the screenplay. The screenplay's really good.
Yeah.
They were going to give it. Ethan had a contact with
Linkletter, I think.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, no. The actress.
Oh yeah. I can't remember the name, but I
Yes,
know
you
what you're
can.
saying.
Help
Okay,
me
let me.
Kate Blanchett.
Right.
Jeremiah is in the corner holding a lot of the cards. It's Kate Blanchett.
Yeah.
And she and her husband are theater monsters.
Yeah.
And they had their own company. And she's still right that it was on stage a lot.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if she read it or not. I think they got it to her. I don't know if she read it because then something else came up. And so it's gone. It's just gone. And yet, as Ethan said to me, sometimes 10 years go by and somebody picks up this script and says, well, let's do this one. I mean, they're like little chestnuts in the ground or something that occasionally they turn up. And so it doesn't matter. It does. But it doesn't matter that it happens when you want it to happen, that you put life into it so that conceivably down the line, it'll ignite again. How do we know? Maybe your novel is really good.
Yeah, it's actually not bad. But I can say that I didn't know what I was doing, but there's a lot of stuff in it that the reason I bring that up is because I've been thinking about going back and rewriting it, about doing something that I have complete control over, even more so than if you're a director in film, right? And also there's a part of me that feels like that chapter of my life, I'm not saying I necessarily want it to be a TV show or a movie or anything, but there's something about that chapter that feels sort of not even unprocessed, but like almost like what you said with APA, unrecognized, even in my own mind, right? And so I say that to say that I've actually been going back and forth of, okay, well, let's say, I'm finishing up another screenplay now. I'm like, all right, well, what if, I took a little break and tried to rewrite this novel in a month or something to see what happened, right?
You should do it.
Well, you say that, but what keeps coming up is, man, I don't want to go there again. And I may not, the because I was thinking about this morning. We were going to talk. I was thinking about, man, the process of writing for me is so exhausting.
Mm.
And I don't know if like that part of my life, I don't know if I really want to go back to it, because it is like, it's, it's a very strange world, and it's a very strange industry, and it's a very misunderstood industry. And so a lot of the currency that I had in writing that book was, and I don't mean exposing as in bad guys and good guys. I mean giving people a little peek behind the curtain of what it's like being a guy in the world of fashion 10 to 15 years ago, because it's not like that as much anymore.
Well,
However,
maybe
there's still a lot of it,
some
but
of
I
it
mean,
is.
well, and it was way more interesting 15 years ago because there were more models and less influencers and things like that. It's like there was a real industry where people would trot around the world doing these things. It's not like that as much anymore, you
I
know?
think that's probably true.
But anyways, I just, it's so interesting you would say that about APA, because I felt that way so much, of wanting to validate the guys that I knew when I was in that world, because
Well,
they're all gone from New York, basically.
okay, that's part of what we're talking about. I mean,
Yeah,
the first book was to say there's no record of this.
yeah,
And very clearly, because I was the witness,
yeah.
they produced me, they made me up out of whole cloth. And you know who else did? Dan Sullivan, the director, Dan Sullivan,
Hmm.
who's my age, had a parallel situation with Lincoln Center and Herbert Blau and Jules Irving coming from San Francisco into taking over Lincoln Center, and APA. That was at the same time. And he and I have had sort of parallel careers. We were both associates. We were both assistants. We both, we sort of came into focus at the same time. I'm so fond of him, and when I ran the Globe, I had him come and direct for me. We've been very good friends all these years.
Yeah,
But what I'm saying basically is that I felt a need. I thought, if I don't tell the story, whether the story gets told or not, I'm the only one who ever will do it.
yeah,
And when Jonathan Mark Sherman and Ethan Hawke and I thought we should do this adaptation of Cherry Orchard, and I grabbed a hold of it, there's something about that says it's your material, it's your turf to turn over.
yeah,
And sometimes I don't think we have the right or even know whether it's of value or not, and maybe we shouldn't. If it sparks something in you enough to make the effort, I mean, you'd have to be pushed over the inertia that is saying, do I really want to go back there?
yeah,
Now, when I did the last book, I could put my hands on this key and just type. I can't do that anymore. Arthritis and age. Now I have to talk it. I have to dictate it and then go back and correct it, because I can't do it anymore.
yeah.
Fortunately for me, the flow of language is part of the cherry red rubber that drives my mill, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
really what this is about.
Well, and as someone that's read the book, I'll say too that, a lot of people, if they told me that, I'd say, well, now you get to do a podcast, so that's like writing. But for you, it's not, because you have such a voice as a writer, and it's like you on steroids when if you and I speak for half an hour, you get a couple minutes of your flourishes, whereas the book is you flourishing the whole time in the best way possible. And so that's why the read is so fun.
Yeah, I don't want to sort of say the book was a big fart or anything, because a day, but a day doesn't go by that somebody doesn't say, I read your book and I loved it.
Yeah.
And they're usually people like us who are into that world and fascinated by how these movements happen. But I'm proud of that book, and I'm proud of the other book. The other book I wrote because I thought to myself, how does it happen that I've had contact with all of these remarkable people, all of whom are more famous than I am, more consequential than I am, better known, whatever. And how did I end up opposite them?
Yeah.
Stoppard and Neil Simon and, Kevin Kline and John Goodman and Jerry Lewis and, all of these extraordinary people. I'm still amazed. But it does make me want to say, let me tell you how this happened. Let me tell you why.
Yeah. Do you think it's interesting, man, because I know we bond over this too, and it's so interesting because my grandfather one time called me Forrest Gump. I don't know if I ever told you this before either.
No.
He called me Forrest Gump because you watch the movie Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump just keeps accidentally falling into the presence of these major historical events or these people. And I only took a little bit of offense to it because Forrest Gump's retarded. But I was like, wait a minute, what? I'm not.
Can you say that anymore? Can you say that anymore? You can't say that.
Nobody's listening, man.
Too true. Too true.
No. Yeah, but I know exactly what you mean, man. And I mean, I've read that one too. I liked it a lot. And I like what you said Ethan told you about 10 years later, man. Because let's see, we're 12 years after the memoir. It's about time, man. We're gonna find some eyes. We're gonna find. And I'll even say this: I didn't even like. It's not you said people like us like that world. I didn't know that world, man. What's interesting is your point of view on it. And I think part of that, if I can be so bold, is to say your hyper self-awareness of not getting in your own way. I have to imagine like a lot of these I'm sure it's true with the second book too. A lot of these personalities are so caught up in them that they're not aware enough to be viewing the outside. And I want, you said I'm the observer. It's like, it sounds like you were the observer in the rooms with a lot of these people too. And that's why your point of view is what's valuable, not even necessarily them. You know what I mean?
I think that's true.
Yeah.
I do believe that's true.
Yeah.
Also, the two of us share something else. I think I mentioned this before. When I was a child, I never wanted to do one thing. I had a lot of things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I remember my parents and my teachers always say, Jack, finish one thing at a time.
Mm.
Just, and I thought to myself then and now, how boring.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in one thing.
Yeah.
And you aren't either.
No, I'm not. But I'll say, man,
I don't even know. I mean, you're going through this now in your 30s, but in your late 30s, your very late 30s, that
37.
I know. I know. We're almost 50 years apart. Isn't that interesting? Almost.
Time. What if it's this way though? What if time is a circle and we're actually right there?
Here we go.
You just circled a time or two before I jumped on the track. I'm telling you, that's how it works. By the end of this thing, a year and a half from now, you're going to be saying that to other people. You're going to be like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Time is a circle.
You in these circles, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyways, yeah, I never wanted to do the same stuff over and over. But I will say, I'm finding it. I'm curious. I mean, because you're diving into another play now too. You literally just did rehearsals for The Sound of Music, or not rehearsals, I'm sorry, but you're casting The Sound of Music now. That's going to go up at the end of the summer, early fall. It's like, you just finished Ghost. You're in Shucked. You're casting now for The Sound of Music. It's like, does that take a lot out of you to be juggling? I know you worked on The Sound of Music before, but does it take a lot out of you to be juggling it?
No, it's exciting. It's exhilarating.
Really? Yeah.
It's refreshing.
Is there bleed over? Like, do you find, and I'll preface it this way. I have actually had to cut back on working on so many things at the same time because it almost feels like my creative juice can't keep it straight. It's almost like one of those, like a fountain soda.
Yeah.
Sometimes the wires get crossed and the
7-Up gets in the way.
Right, exactly. I have a lot of orange soda coming in my 7-Up now, so I have to try to spread it apart.
I don't have that.
Huh.
I don't think I have that.
Yeah.
They're different countries.
Yeah.
They're different vocabularies. They're different. No. I mean, what was astonishing to me is how much Ghosts took out of me.
Yeah.
I mean, I as I said to you at the time, I was blue, which is very unusual for me. And I was haunted by their pain and the struggle of the actors and the commitment of them to go deeper and truer. And for me to help them do that, to keep saying, keep going, you're going in the right direction. Don't go here, go there. It really bummed me out in a way that I haven't in a very long time. But then it's a much darker piece than what I've been used to be using recently anyway, commercially or personally.
Yeah. Did it do that to you when you did it back at the Globe?
I don't think. No. I mean, I'm telling you, this is where I get really in trouble because I know that was a production that was elegant and very well received. And Patricia Connolly, who's played the lead, who's still very much alive, remembers it as her daughter did, who no longer acts, but she was the Regina. They have very specific memories of it. I don't have any.
Yeah.
And I remember, all I do remember, and they do too, that I did it with the floorboards open, because it was in the round, and the light came through the floorboards.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay. Well, I guess.
Right.
I don't know why I'm proud of that, but I did it.
Right.
But I tell you,
Yeah.
that's not the play I just did.
No, not at all. Do you remember why you made that choice to have the I know you said you don't remember. No. Huh. Interesting. It's funny that it would stay with them.
Yeah, they loved it.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Well, look, I mean, I grant you that after all of this time, and someone who ran a theater for 25 years or so, you do think theatrically.
Yeah.
You do look for a grasp.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're doing a play in the round, there's no scenery.
Right.
So how are you going to get an evocation of something ooga booga and strange?
Yeah. That's good. That's so great. I didn't even think about. I mean, yeah, it makes total sense hearing you explain it. But it's just like a trick. That's a trick of the trade. That's a sort of pro level move.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in a little house now that is my little house here, and I don't have a lot of wall space, but I have a lot of floors, and I got beautiful rugs on the floor.
Yeah.
And so for me, the art is on the floor.
Huh. That's cool.
I want you to think about this. I want you to start looking at rugs.
Yeah.
Because they can go with you for a long time.
Yeah.
You can roll them.
I got like half a suitcase. How am I going to carry these
No,
rugs?
and then eventually. And the other thing that people don't do, you should live with some real art.
Yeah,
now,
I know. You told me that before, yeah.
I think it's important. And I don't know why, except it's a window through another creative aperture that is not necessarily yours. Somebody looks at it and then interprets it in oil or gouache or even a photograph, I suppose. They interpret it, what they're looking at, because it's worth looking at. And then there it is on the wall. And it's a different way of thinking of fixing something that you can't articulate, but that you somehow feel is important.
Yeah.
Why does the painter paint that?
Yeah.
Why did Turner paint that? Why did Andy Warhol do those identical pictures in different colors?
Yeah, but it's the same reason you don't take the act break in Ghost, because it frees you. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the same. I think that's just your version of the soup can in some ways, you know?
Well, and when I did the production the last time, I did take intermissions.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting too. Well, what I want to jump on is it's interesting too, man, because like I think you would say you've become a much better director in that time. You also don't remember, I mean, unless you blocked it out as some sort of trauma response, you don't remember having such difficulty with Ghost the last time.
No,
so is that sort of an indicator that because I'll put it this way, I feel like so much of a better writer now. But what you're saying about Ghost, man, I feel that about everything I do. It feels like every day is just like slitting my own wrist, and not to use the Hemingway expression, and it feels melodramatic. I don't even like talking about it. But today, again, it's like, man, you really wind yourself up to do these things. And sometimes it makes doing everything else really difficult. And you had that experience with Ghost, where it's like, you're just here to direct Ghost, and it makes you sad and it's hard and all this kind of stuff. And I just wonder, like, is that the price of being better? Because you do go deeper.
Yeah, it's also the nature of the people in your field, how you respond to them, to their need. I mean, when I did Ghost the last time, there was more objectivity about it. But the nature of my friendship with Lily Rabe and Hamish Linklater and Billy Crudup, and even the kids, even Ella Beatty and even Levon Hawk, although I didn't know them at all
Yeah.
until we started to work, was they were looking to me saying, give me more.
Hmm.
And the universe wasn't doing that in the 90s.
Right.
The universe is now desperate to know, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
How do I relate? Is this a waste of time?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's maybe a neat way of putting it, but
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
I think it's true.
I think it is too. The only thing I would add is like, I don't know if the universe would say, give me more if they didn't think you could give it to them. You know what I mean? So maybe that's a reflection of your own growth in that too. It's like, I feel, great power comes with great responsibility kind of adage.
Yeah.
And I would assume, again, not to put words in your mouth, that I think you're feeling that way about The Sound of Music coming up too.
Totally.
Yeah. And when you're in, we spoke a little bit about it, but when you're in these, because again, just to reiterate, you're casting for The Sound of Music, which is going up at the Kennedy Center, which is funny in its own right, at the end of the summer, early fall. What is it like being in this casting session, knowing that's where you're going, that's what you're doing?
Everything now is fraught. Everything now is perishable and dangerous. We are no longer taking anything for granted. We are being defined and defining for ourselves every breathing moment, because things are changing around us quickly. And we have to make decisions as to what we stand for and what we will tolerate and what we won't tolerate. And so the creative art itself can no longer just be entertainment, I don't think, because it could be taken away from us. It hasn't been.
Right.
We've not had that in our lifetime. Other societies have had it, so it's possible. It can shut down. The state can take over. You can be denied a voice.
Right.
So every time you pick up an idea, it's no longer 2 dimensions, it's 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
I think it's no longer over there, it's in here. And
I would say, man, that's what I would jump on. I have this belief that, because I wonder sometimes if, like, because you hear the old adage of everyone's always pretty sure they're living at the end of history. You know what I mean? Like everyone over and over is sort of sure that, like, okay, what if this is the end? I wonder, man, if this return to, I don't know, one thing I think that inspires me about you, and I think inspires a lot of people, is there's such an importance to story, right? There's such an importance to what you're doing. That is so important. I think that whether the times are reflecting it as much or not, obviously there's things going on at the Kennedy Center that would say, like, okay, wait a minute, that could be a possibility. But even take that out of the equation, it's like, man, like this importance of story is something that I really find inspiring. And the thing I want to ask though is, looking at it that way, are you worried that hurts the work one way or another? And I'll say that because, does that put too much pressure on it? Does that give it the space to breathe, or does that urgency help it?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. I mean, one of the things I'm constantly saying is I'm trying not to get in the way.
Right.
But we're talking about getting in the way.
Right, exactly. Well, that's the thing, is like when it becomes too, because I'm doing this, literally the script I'm rewriting now, I'm constantly asking myself, am I so, because it's not a situation where I'm worried someone's going to silence it. It's a situation where it's so important to me, and what I think I'm trying to get at is so important to me. And we can't talk about it, or I would, but it's like that story, I don't want to get in the way of it. And there'll be moments where I'm like, you know what, this isn't quite there yet. And then I'll have to stop for a second and say, wait a minute, am I over analyzing or over getting at it? And is this really helping the work, or am I losing something that was important to it? And I just wondered, it's interesting to hear. How do you think about that then as you're going into The Sound of Music? What are the buffers you put on yourself to make sure it's not too precious or too important?
Look, there are things I know are fresh.
Yeah.
There are questions that are not being asked
In the sound, like
by
about
the Sound of
piece.
Music. Yeah, the
Right.
Sound of Music has been frozen,
Yeah.
and then it got put into amber when it made the movie, which
Yeah.
is not the Sound of Music.
Right.
It's a version of the Sound of Music. It's a very 60s version of the Sound of Music. But if you go back to the material, the 1936 material from which it sprang, that's just a version of it with Julie Andrews and Christopher Plummer and all those people. But that is not what was on the stage, and that's not what the creators necessarily meant, and the creators didn't like it. So when I confronted it, I sort of started stripping away all of that to say, well, what's the initial, or as that wonderful quote I love, where is the exciting discovery with which you began? Which is a great thing.
Such a great line.
Isn't it?
So good.
And I'm trying to remember now. I know exactly who said it. Well, maybe I'll come up with it. Now I went, why is the name Romain Gary in my mind? That's not right. Anyway, I'll find it. Anyway,
Sure.
that speech, that thought
Yeah.
is really what we're talking about. The minute you start to interpret, you are painting over. And so what is the pentimento that comes through that, your ego, your paint, that is worth our attention? And if you overdo it, you obliterate the source that produced it. And if you don't do enough of it, you're not saying anything.
Yeah.
So it's constantly, you have to ask yourself these questions, and you have to push yourself, and then you have to come back from the edge. Or it just becomes about you.
Yeah, yeah, that's the real danger. And are you, when you're going into something like the sound, I mean, I imagine with Shucked, it's not quite as much as maybe it'll be with the Sound of Music, but because Shucked, while it's making a statement, it's not in the same place. It's a different type of show. But with the Sound of Music, I'm asking, do you have to constantly be on guard with the actors for that? Is this a kind of note that you're constantly working with actors and actresses about, or?
Well, let me go back just for a moment. You said that's not the Shucked is a very funny, simplified fable.
Yeah.
And it's an excuse for a string with a lot of jokes on it and a lot of wonderful music.
Yeah.
But I had to create a world in which that was real.
Right.
And before I went to London to start working on that version of it, I usually backed off and said, I didn't do that much. Now, I know a lot of people, particularly directors, were saying to me, how did you make that happen? And I thought, I don't think I did.
Right.
I just sort of took care of everybody. But when I went back to London, because they're British, and I'm watching them do it, I suddenly realized every crook of every bit of it was seen through my own lens.
Yeah.
Of trying to preserve that world.
Right.
So I did do a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though it didn't feel to me like I was doing anything.
Yeah.
That's that push-pull thing I'm talking about. I'm there and I'm not there.
Yeah. It's almost like writing the book, man. It's like what I told you, whereas you were saying these people are so interesting, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, man, what's interesting is you. I don't care about these people. Your point of view on it. Now, just so people at home can know, when you're talking about doing that with Shucked and creating this world, is there like a specific one, like an instance, one or two? Like, what do you mean? Even me as seen the show 5 times. What are you saying when you're saying that? Like, what I kind of understand, but like, is there an instance where you're like, you know what, we brought that in?
This is simplistic and it's not really very good, but there are tons of, Robert Hoyne wrote hilarious jokes.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. One of my favorite jokes is, you remember what Grandpa said just before he died? Are you boys still holding the ladder? I mean, I laughed for 10 minutes when I heard that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you say that, it's a funny joke.
Yeah.
But if it's on the stage, it has to have context.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have to believe it.
Yeah.
So you can't do it so that you kill the joke.
Right.
With too much reality.
Right.
Seeing the old man falling off the ladder. But you've got to have it both ways.
Yeah.
And so to justify humor you have to personalize it and then set it free. You have to put it through your own lens, so it actually has some gravitas.
Yeah.
And then you have to let it fly like a bird, because it's wit.
Yeah.
You can't hold on to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a weird thing, and I'm really good at that.
Yeah. Man, it's so interesting you're saying this, because even I'm thinking back about it now, seeing it. I'm thinking about the Broadway version. And I've described it to people as saying, sometimes it feels like you're at a stand-up comedy show. But what I never put together till right now is the only way I could say that and still love the show is because you kept it moving and kept it feeling like it was a show till I left. Because sitting there, I never thought to myself,
These are jokes.
I'm at a Dave Chappelle special. I just laughed and had fun, and the audience had fun and stuff. But I leave, and what I'm telling people is, yeah, the music's great, and you feel like you're at a stand-up comedy show sometimes. But I never once sitting in the play thought to myself, oh, this is slow, or this doesn't. The whole thing was moving, and like you said, you create this world where we go with it.
One of my colleagues said to me, one of the best things that was so lovely to hear this, he said, everybody was in the same world.
Yeah, yeah.
You created a world in which they were all there.
Yeah.
And then, a lot of times we're funny with each other, but we don't laugh.
Right.
I mean, that's you and me do that. We do that all the time.
Sure.
Where we're just being funny, and you set it up, and the other guy thinks, yeah, that's really good, but you don't stop for it.
Yeah. You expect it almost.
So we're in that world.
Yeah.
So so that has to be the context of what you're doing for an audience. You have to give them a context that is sealed.
That's cool. All right, man. On that note, why don't we say, when are you going back? Because Shucked opens May the 20th in London.
Yes.
That's going to be exciting.
It will.
I think it's going to be.
Are you there? You're there, aren't you?
Well, Highest to Lowest premieres on May the 19th. So I'll be in France, and I'll be sending up a flare.
You'll be listening.
Yeah, I'm going to send up, for the laughter, I'm going to send up a big firework of corn. So you'll be able to look across the ocean and see it. Do you know when you go, though? Will you be there next week?
I'm going next week. I'll be there Wednesday night.
Yeah.
I fly during the day. I can't sleep on a plane anymore. I'm too old.
I can't do it now either.
Well, a lot of people can, but I can't do it. So I take the first plane in the morning. I leave at 8:00, get in London at 8:00 in the evening, go to the hotel, go to bed, and then I get up the next morning.
Love it.
So I'm there from Thursday on next week.
Awesome. Well, maybe we'll.
We will, won't we?
Hopefully, we'll get to chat again. Yeah, or we'll chat there. We'll do something.
I have to carry this shit with me.
Yeah, you got to put it in your backpack, and that's why Jeremiah's in the corner holding all the cards.
Yes, he is too.
All right. Well, thank you for the time, Jack. This was great, man. And I never thought about that with Shuck, but that's really interesting hearing that. So it's cool to think about.
I don't ever said it, but it was helpful for me too.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, thank you for the time. Thank you everyone for listening. Love you, Jack. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, babe.